Hi, friends. Welcome back to Extraordinary Connection, a devotional website with posts from United Methodists across Michigan. My name is Pastor Scott, and I'm glad you're here. Our family plays a lot of games. From video games to dice to dominoes to cards, and of course, we play a lot of board games. We have a large collection of board games in the house that are strategic, whimsical, cooperative, card based, and more. And when our family gathers together, we break out the board games and we all sit down, kids and grandkids alike. Here's a quick picture of one of our shelves of games, and there's another big shelf in the basement. And each one of our children has a similar collection of games at their houses. Games are the go-to gift every Christmas, and oftentimes that's what you're going to get for your birthday, too. We all have our favorites, but the one game we all started on when we were young is the game Candyland. And I'm guessing you've heard of it, and I'm guessing you played it because it sells about 1 million copies each year. There's no strategy involved to playing Candyland. You don't need to know how to count. Players draw cards, move their board pieces along the rainbow-colored path to match the color drawn on the card. There are a couple cards that can take you backwards, and there are a couple cards that'll leap you way forward to the front, but the game is pretty straightforward. You match your colors, you move forward, and the first one to the end square wins. And like I said, you've probably played it once or twice yourself. But do you know the history of the game Candyland? I want to take us back to 1948. It was a height of the polio epidemic in the United States, and children were being hospitalized in record numbers for the polio virus. When you have polio, one of the most common symptoms is muscle paralysis. You're unable to walk, move your arms, and sometimes breathe. So the wards of polio-infected kids would be row after row, bed after bed, with kids inside of iron lungs or stuck to the beds because they just can't move around on their own. So as you can imagine, to be so incapacitated is terribly difficult on a child. It's scary and it's boring. Now, the wards weren't 100% filled with children. Unvaccinated adults can contract polio too, and that's what happened to Eleanor Abbott. Eleanor was a retired school teacher from the San Diego School District. When she contracted polio in 1948, she was hospitalized among the children in the polio ward. Being a teacher, Eleanor was sensitive to the children who were stuck, sometimes months on end, in the ward. And being a teacher, she couldn't help herself. She read to the children, she helped them with their studies, and she wanted to find ways to take their minds off of their hospitalization. And the wards were filled with children of all ages, and she wanted to come up with a way to engage everyone. So while a patient herself, she invented the game Candyland. A game, again, that doesn't require the ability to do math or count. A game where everyone can play. A game that's a little bit of fantasy and filled with candy, and what kid doesn't love candy? Players are navigating across a rainbow path through all those different candy fields. And it wasn't designed just to be a way to pass time. It was an opportunity to provide a little fantastical escape. Movement is a big part of the game, something the kids weren't able to do in real life. And the game was so popular among the kids in the ward that the families of the children in that hospital, the doctors and the nurses, they all encouraged Eleanor to publish her game, which she did. She sold the rights to Milton Bradley, and she donated all her profits to children's charities. And one quick fun fact for you. If you look close on the original game boards, you'll see that the boy in the game is wearing a brace on his leg like a survivor of polio might. Can you see it? It's real subtle. God used Eleanor's passion for teaching. He used her illness, her kind spirit, to share a bit of love with the children in the polio ward and with the children today. That's how God works. I believe that God calls us to bring what we are, our good, our bad, our past successes, and our mistakes, our passions, our hobbies, our fears, everything that we are to the tasks that he calls us to do. And I believe that everything that's happened in your life and mine will be used by God to bring good in the world. I believe that God calls each of us to use all the pieces of ourselves to do the work of the kingdom here on the earth. Yet so many times we all, and I'm guilty of this too, we worry that we don't have the skill set to do the work God puts before us. Or we worry we aren't the right person, or we dismiss ourselves saying we really have nothing to offer. We don't trust that when God calls us to a task, it's because God wants us specifically for that task. Have you ever heard yourself say to God, I can't do that, God, or I don't know how to do that, God, or I can't do that, I'm no good at whatever he's calling you to do? We are all masters of excuses about why we can't do the work of the kingdom. But again and again in the Bible, we have stories of people that God puts to work, and he still uses their previous careers, their previous hobbies and passions, their previous experiences and mistakes. Paul was a tent maker, and he still made tents after he became apostle to support himself. David was a shepherd, and he used his sling skills he developed protecting the flock to defeat Goliath. But my favorite story is of Moses. God wanted Moses to free his people from the bonds of slavery in Egypt. And when Moses heard God's call, when Moses spoke with God, Moses gave excuse after excuse why he wasn't the right person for the job. I've highlighted the verses here from Exodus chapters 3 and 4. Each time Moses says, I'm not the right person for the job, God answers and tells him why he was. So if you have a moment, read Exodus chapter 3 and 4 and listen closely to all the excuses Moses gives God why he can't do the job, just like we do. Each time you tell God why you aren't the right person for the job, God tells you why you are. Your age, your faults, your insecurities, your successes, your skills, your experience are all exactly why God wants you, to partner with you, to work with you to share his love with the world. You are the perfect person God has for the work that needs to be done. What is God calling you to do? Are you saying no? Because you are the perfect person to create that game, to bake that pie, or to share that little bit of love to those in your life. Think on it. Pray on it. Maybe God is calling you to give a devotion on extraordinaryconnection.org.